Thank you, Julio. And thank you, Tom and Nader, for this wonderful opportunity to present my paper. I just want to say that Jody is sending you greetings from China. She is now representing her school to negotiate some collaboration with 2 schools of landscape architecture in China. So, the Eruv, a transformation of an urban public space to a private place for spiritual renewal, is part of an open session because it deals with past, present, and future. This is a phenomena that was started. You don't hear me? Sorry. You didn't hear it before? You did? No?
Now, yeah. Now better.
Okay, now better. Okay, sorry. Okay.
Is it better?
Is it better now?
Yes.
Good. Sorry. So greetings from China, from Jody. That's what I was saying. Okay. So the Eruv is a 3,000 years phenomena and is still practicing, and it will practice in the future. The 4th commandment, as appeared in Exodus, says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. It is so important that it appears as the 4th before the commandments of do not kill, do not steal, etc. Every Sabbath, starting on Friday night with the lighting of the Sabbath candles, the community begins a weekly ritual of keeping the day holy. It goes on for 24 hours, sunset to sunset. The importance of this day called for interpretation already in Exodus as saying everyone is to stay where he is on the 7th day. No one is to go out. And in Jeremiah, do not bring a load out of your houses or do any work on the Sabbath, but keep the Sabbath day holy. That made the home a sacred place, which is a known concept across location and cultures. However, this interpretation limited the access to experience the holy of the Sabbath in public within a community, confining people to the house and courtyards. With the establishment of the Eruv already 3,000 years ago, every Sabbath an urban area is enclosed by an invisible footprint of a boundary to extend the private domain of Jewish household into public areas, creating spiritual renewals. Thus, the extension of the limits of home helps people to observe the Sabbath in public spaces. The objective of this paper are to describe the Eruv phenomenon and analyze its design principles along accepted aspects of time and space, domestication of urban public space, physical attributes that contribute to the image and legibility of the Eruv in the city, and its capacity to create spiritual renewal. So what is an Eruv? It is literally and metaphorically domestication of an urban space, streets and neighborhoods, providing freedom with a bound. The planning of the Eruv starts in the center, which is the area landmark, usually the synagogue, and it's defined concentrically, attempting to include as many Jewish households of the neighborhood as possible. It is interesting to note that Kevin Lynch's theory on the creation and perception of urban districts identified the landmark as a central point of reference. And Phil Tabb's matrix that creation of a sacred place also start with a central point, right? The Oxford's dictionaries define Eruv, mixture in Hebrew, as, and I quote, an urban area enclosed by a wire boundary that symbolically extend the private domain of Jewish household into public areas, permitting activities within it that are normally forbidden in public on Sabbath. The Eruv as a concept of mixing refers to many acts of mix, of the forbidden with the permissible. But all agree that the Eruv, and I quote, brings together entities otherwise kept apart on the Sabbath, end of quote. The Talmud, the Jewish law book established 3,000 years ago, introduced the Eruv, or Eruvim in plural, in a 105 two-sided pages volume as part of the books on the Sabbath. The Eruv laws turned the Sabbath into, and I quote, a more modern space, a place both enclosed and open. Over time, the rabbinic definition of an Eruv continued to evolve, especially with the challenges of Jewish community living in larger cities as a minority group. The challenge is highlighted when communities attempt to base their Eruv on biblical laws and precedents, with a larger urban area controlled by local government authorities that were not necessarily sympathetic to the concept of the Eruv. Often, these conditions raised legal questions, which contributed to heated dispute among the leading rabbis of the time. The Eruv must be legal according to the Talmudic law, as well as be legalized by the local government, as it is a temporary use of public property. The Eruv committee representatives sign a rental agreement with the government agency representative. For example, in Boston, the Greater Boston Eruv Agreement was signed with the governor of the state of Massachusetts for an 800 years lease. The legal document allows the community to use the utility infrastructure, roads, and public landscape as the Eruv's boundaries, and to maintain the Eruv even when the city does not offer the found infrastructure along the proposed perimeter. It also allows checking the edge every Thursday to assure the Eruv is intact as a completely defined district. Here, they head out by air to get a look at the hillside along the 405. Rooted in the sacred experience, the importance of time in considering the place for accessing the Sabbath is in its meaning, to celebrate time rather than space. For the Orthodox Jew, the temporal dimension of life is what distinguishes place from space and is exemplified by the human experience inside the Eruv. The Eruv's weekly temporal scale of 1 to 7 expresses a rhythmic anticipation or aftermath of accessing the sacred experience. However, when describing the image of Eruv, we detect not only the temporal and spiritual characteristic of the Eruv, but also its physical attributes, which create a place. As we look at Doaxitis and Salingaro's definition of place as time plus space, we can determine that the Eruv is a place, which allows the access to the spiritual experience of the holy day. Let's imagine a place where once a week, stepping out of the home, you are still, wait a minute, there you go. You are still at home, giving an uplifting spatial experience affected by implementation of the Eruv. Thus, the archetype of home becomes materially and spiritually referenced in the establishment of the district of the Eruv. If we examine the exterior wall of the home and the post and lintel configuration of the doorway, we can conclude that the doorway determines the edge between public and private, and its threshold distinguishes the spaces. The extension of this edge to include a whole neighborhood during the Sabbath ensures that the connection reflects the precise tectonic of a doorway architecture, such as the wires of horizontal elements of the Eruv are attached to the side rather than the top of the pole. By the Talmudic law, the Eruv that is made of natural edges is blessed and is considered of a higher quality than Eruvim requiring intervention to generate the district edge. And they represent a more permanent relation with nature. More so, the edge is also perceived as a spiritual boundary, creating a transformation of secular space to sacred domain. Therefore, the intent of constructing the Eruv can result theoretically in creating an edge as a spiritual metaphor. In fact, an invisible edge, indistinguishable, is better than a profoundly visible edge that is in contrast with its setting. Its threshold defines the most minimalistic expression of transference from private to public domain, since they make the moment of entry. This principle illustrates how the Eruv designers alter the physical world with the threshold archetype to achieve access for spiritual renewal. Kevin Lynch define district as areas characterized by common characteristics, though they may consist of endless variety of their physical commonalities. This is also the case of the Eruv, which in all cities, its symbolic boundaries create a temporal district for 1 day per week. The Eruv example of Elkin Park in Pennsylvania demonstrates how the Eruv, which started with the Orthodox synagogue in red in the map, also encompasses other synagogues from the conservative and reform, such as the famous Bet Shalom synagogue designed by Frank Lloyd Wright in 1954, indicated on the Eruv map in turquoise. It is interesting to notice that Wright designed the synagogue as a beacon of light for a whole community, making it a central landmark. If it would be an Orthodox synagogue, this landmark would become central to the Eruv and its light serving it as its spiritual inspiration. This slide shows examples of the different configuration of Eruvim or Eruv districts. These images are from a collection of Jody's students when she was still teaching at Texas A&M University. That's when we started this whole line of research. Still, all are based on the specific dimensions of the Eruv district, which were determined by the Talmud according to size, type, and use. Private domain, or Reshut HaYachid, habitable, covering at least 12 square feet, demarcated from its surrounding by walls or topography. Public domain, Reshut HaRabim, major roads, plazas not enclosed by walls or roofs and frequented by many people. Semi-public domain, Carmelis, like a shared courtyard, local street, tot lot, can have walls and limited visitors or users who see each other daily. An exempt area, Makom Patur, are cemeteries and bodies of water. The extent of the district surrounding the place should not be more than a 2,000 cubic walk unit, just a little under a kilometer or a half mile. It is very appealing to consider these as universal dimensions. Kevin Lynch considered the path especially important since they reflect the physical organization of the district and urban mobility. The nodes, on the other hand, serve as junctions of path or the path focal point that can also express a point of perception. Uniquely, all places within an Eruv have equal potential both as an origin and as a destination. And the multiple paths connecting these nodes are as diverse and dense as the city's formal and informal pedestrian network. The same network is used during the week for walking, jogging, strolling, or driving. These paths become functional in nature, helping to perform a task, cross boundaries, edges, and threshold. While during the Sabbath, these pathways, as part of the Eruv, help access the spiritual realms of the holy day in that district. To illustrate environmental images as an expression of experiential feature of the Eruv, we turn again to Kevin Lynch and his followers, who used mental cognitive mapping of environmental images as a tool to understand processes of present urbanization, society complexities, and technologies such as digital navigation tools, and to identify components of identity, structure, and meaning. In 2010, Jennifer Kazinow used the idea of mental mapping of the environmental image of the Eruv as a means to understand the perception and process of the Eruv. In this slide, you can trace some of these maps drawn by women from the Jewish community who use the Northwest London Eruv every Sabbath. Although the physical and symbolic edges of the Eruv took many years of planning, they were, and I'm quoting, almost never mentioned as part of the way in which the Eruv practitioners experienced the space, end of quote. It was more about seeing people use the Eruv than to a perceived need to see the boundary. This idea enhances the perception of the Eruv as a vibrant, dynamic time and space for social interaction and pedestrian walking. It should be emphasized that Kazinow focused only on women's responses to mapping the Eruv environmental image. This was performed to support her hypothesis that Jewish women, especially young mothers with babies and small kids, were spatially freed once a domestication of a public district was established. This women's opinion was expressed in the map as part of their social interaction utilizing the urban landscape, such as park or visiting friends. Their home, once central, became part of much larger Sabbath environment. Please note that most of them did not draw the synagogue, the central landmark of the Eruv, in their map. The one who included the temple either mentioned it at the edge of their spatial configuration of the Eruv or in the center with a secondary path as an addition to their major path to the synagogue used mainly by men. This mapping expresses not only women's perception of walking to this landmark, but also the differences in use of the Eruv between men and women of the community. These interesting findings may open a whole new line of phenomenological research and discussion. In conclusion, we have learned that the Eruv is a celebration of time when you access and are aware of the cycles of life and the grand order of nature, which provides the community a unique and distinct relationship with its temporal and physical space. In a more poetic way, we conclude quoting Rumi's poem from the 13th century, which expresses the spiritual aspect of the Eruv. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing, and right doing, there is a field. Will you meet me there? After all, what else am I doing on the Sabbath but exactly that? Beyond ideas, meeting him there in the field. Thank you.
So a clarification question for Anat.
I was asked, how do you pronounce Eruv? Okay, in Hebrew you pronounce Eruv. In English, some people are saying Eruv. So I use the Eruv as Hebrew original word. Okay, does anybody have any question? Can I turn it to the next speaker?